everyone, what's up? Welcome to the Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and here's the most important part. We help people create lives and businesses they love. That's why we do everything. That's the whole purpose of the show. I am joined by my co-host, Polish Peter.
So I'm going to make a really corny joke right now, okay?
Oh, no. Dude, we don't want people to stop listening this early.
So this is a Polish Peter double. It's an automated version of Peter, okay? And the reason for that is because today we're going to be talking about automation in your business. How was it? Was it a corny joke? Was it corny enough? Was it weird enough? Well, anyway.
No one's going to get it.
What's that?
Nothing.
Well, dude, some might get it, some might not. It is what it is.
So, hey, man. So we are today talking with Greg Jenkins. Really, really cool, awesome guy. I've had the privilege of getting to know him through my journey into Infusionsoft, now known as Keep. Just a guy with a heart for helping people, but he's also created a really cool business, helps a lot of people, has a really cool story. And I knew he'd be a great guest on the show.
Yeah. And then the reason why I made the corny joke, by the way, is, think about it as a business owner. A lot of times we think about, okay, how do I duplicate myself? How do I make more of me? Because sometimes we run out of steam, run out of hours, run out of time. And automation is one of those vehicles that's really going to help you grow your business or not, however you want to look at it. But it's one of those things that's very important for any kind of business. So listen from that perspective when you're thinking about your business, as Greg is sharing his story, why automating matters and what should you be automating, those kinds of things.
Well, and to that point, he actually dropped some life and air bombs in there too about, knowing like how big do I really want to get? Does this business already serve me? What is the end goal? What am I really after here? And designing your business that way as well. So if you're looking for those nuggets, this is a great episode to check it out. Let's go to our interview right now with Greg Jenkins of MonkeyPod Marketing. Greg, what's up? Welcome to the Life Inner Show. Thanks for joining us.
It is totally my pleasure, guys.
Greg, so Peter, I had the extreme privilege of I've been following kind of Greg, not in a like weird stalker way, but like he's.
I don't know about that. We'll let him answer that.
Well, yeah, I haven't noticed him, so if he has been, he's really good.
I'm doing it right. I'm doing it the right way, right? So Greg is an Infusionsoft expert, and I'm sure he's going to clarify that. But basically, in Life and Air, we use Infusionsoft for our CRM. I had to take over this responsibility not too long ago, and I was just frantic. I was terrified of the software. I didn't know how to do it. I was afraid to log in. I was actually one of those people. And through a lot of the stuff that Greg has provided openly online for free, I've learned a ton. I feel like I'm a good, maybe intermediate level at this point. I would never say advanced, but like through Greg's training, Greg's generosity and his experience and expertise, like it's really helped Life in Air a lot. And one of the things that struck me about him, man, and Greg, this is something we just mentioned before we started recording. You have so much out there that, I was just drawn to your generosity and stuff like that. And I want to talk about that in business because I think a lot of people are afraid to be generous, or they're afraid to give away their content or their services or product because they start, there's a scarcity mindset. But before we get to that, I want to talk about how did you get to where you are now? Because the other thing that's really congruent with Life in Air that I want to address first is like you have this remote business. I know you love to hike, you love to travel and do all these awesome things. And so like, how did you fall into this position? Or, were you just bit by the Infusionsoft bug early on? Or was this by design?
Man, it's interesting how like our story changes depending on like how far back we go, right? Like if I start at the beginning of MonkeyPod, like that's I'm an entrepreneur with automation as a skill set. But if you go back further, I was an Infusionsoft employee. The company is now called Keep, but it was Infusionsoft at the time. And I was an automation, educator. And I worked as a consultant for small businesses to help them adopt systems. But if you go back before that, my first business I ran was installing and servicing draft beer dispense systems for bars, restaurants, nightclubs, country clubs, anywhere that had like a draft beer system. Somebody has to, run the lines, make sure that they are dispensing at the appropriate flow rate, at the appropriate temperature, that there isn't beer waste, that it's, not losing or gaining carbonation as a result of that dispense, and that the lines are, kept up so that it's not affecting the intended flavor profile of, what the brewer made, right?
That's very important.
Yeah, well, I thought so. And so I did that for like 5 or 6 years, from 2007 to 2012. But the business grew, which I thought meant I was doing it the right way. But what I know now and didn't know then is that the model I was in was unsustainable because it was entirely manual. Everything I did myself. And like, I would go get the client, and then I would, do a demo, and then I would, close the deal, and then I would, service that client. And then we would find another installation job, and then we would order the parts, and then we would deliver on that. And I had a pad of paper that stayed in the center console of of the service truck we worked out of. And if somebody called me, like, I would write their info down, and then if I called them back, I would cross it off. And if I couldn't get a hold of them, I would like circle it. Like that was my like whole system, right? That was the level of like organization I was working with. And I just didn't have the lens. I didn't know to ask for a tool like Infusionsoft. I didn't know to ask for automation. I didn't know that like receivables and like so many elements, like relationship building, appointment reminders, like so many aspects of that business could have been automated, but it wasn't on my radar to seek it out. So, Peter had asked about my partner, Sarah. I moved to Arizona following her and left. My business partner bought me out of that business, and I went to Arizona sort of without a plan. And a friend said, well, you should check out Infusionsoft. And I was like, screw you. I'm a beer guy. Not a software nerd. Why would I work at a place called Infusionsoft? And after a couple of months of being unemployed, I went and checked it out. And it was like, it was like seeing color for the first time. I felt like I was like, there's layers to the world that I had previously not been able to discern. And working there, it helped me build this automation muscle. I got to see firsthand like the results it can create for businesses if they're able to get past that learning curve. But what I ran into, and Jason, what I think you're describing is like so many small businesses are good at the thing that they are good at. Like for me, I was good at installing and servicing draft beer dispense systems. I didn't think of myself as a marketer or as an automation guy, but that's a necessary evil for like running my business. It's part of like the hats that we need to wear. And so the learning curve regularly was people underestimated it, and it prohibited them from receiving the types of results that I know Keep and Infusionsoft make possible. So it sort of became my like personal mission, like a crusade against this learning curve to help as many people as possible get past that. And I would do my job, like the coaching and onboarding and delivering the Infusionsoft University training classes. And then like in the evenings and weekends, I would like hang out in the community forums and the Facebook groups for these, answering questions because number one, because it helped me get better. Like I'm a former water polo player. Like there is an athlete in me who is like perpetually competitive. And so I just wanted to improve. I got tired of leaving, events with a list of questions I had to go figure out, or hanging up a consulting call and saying, I'll get back to you. And so I wanted to have like a skill set that I could confidently use to help any business on the planet navigate the ins and outs of this platform. And so I started hanging out in these groups to make myself better. But, over time, there were fewer and fewer questions that I hadn't seen before. And it just became like this outlet for me to help and support the small business owners on that journey to adopting and employing automation throughout their business. Because there's a piece of me that was like, if I had known this in that first business, I wouldn't have burnt out. I wouldn't have been whatever it was, 26 or 27 years old, feeling like I was trapped, feeling like I was on a hamster wheel, right? Like I loved the business, but the model burnt me out. And it's because I didn't know tools like Infusionsoft existed. So I wanted to help the other people, the other business owners who have something they're proud of that can serve the world or serve their audience or serve themselves. But the path to getting there requires that they find resources outside of themselves to make it happen in a way that doesn't deplete them. There.
So you have found basically what I'm hearing is through your own personal experience and a fortuitous kind of introduction to automation, you have found something you feel passionate about. You found kind of a purpose in helping other business owners and entrepreneurs like avoid some of the same things that you had to struggle with. And the truth is, I love what you said too, is like earlier when you started to scale, you started having more challenges. And I think a business that doesn't have that strong foundation and set up correctly from the start, like, scaling just it reveals more problems with your business than being sometimes small can get away from.
Yeah. I think sometimes our problems scale with us, right? As people grow, or there's just different problems at different altitudes, right? As your business grows, you may like leave one set of problems behind and like totally create the next set for yourself. Right. And so, yeah, that's the story is like, I recognize the value in this tool. And then as an employee, that was probably the advantage that I had was I was a salaried employee while I became a world-class expert in this tool. And so I didn't have the same risk exposure that a small business has. If a small business adopts this tool, oftentimes it's like, okay, this is what we need. We need to make this work, but learning it isn't their full-time job. Whereas for me, it was, and I feel really fortunate that was the position that I found myself in. And then, 4 years, I was at Infusionsoft, as it was called at the time, for 4 years. And then Sarah moved to San Diego to start a PhD program. And I stayed another year. We did like the long distance thing from Phoenix to San Diego. And then I was like, what am I doing? Like, I moved to Arizona to be with this girl, and now she's in a different city and I'm stuck in Arizona. And I have run a business, and now I understand, automation and systems and technology. Like I have this skill set to do it myself. I sort of wanted to put me in, coach, like, let me get in the game. Let me like take another run at this entrepreneurship thing. And so I left Infusionsoft and became a small business owner once again, started Monkey Pod Marketing. I'm doing effectively what I was doing for the parent company, but doing it for myself, where I could find my own customers, find the Infusionsoft users that wanted to learn it, right? Because not everybody wants to understand the tool. Some people just want the results that it creates, and they're willing to pay to have someone else manage it. But I think there are enough small business owners that are either by choice or by circumstance, they're the ones running the tool and want, education, training, guidance to assist with overcoming that learning curve to get to a point where their investment in the tools that they use is, justifying itself hopefully in multiples.
So listen, I got a question for you, Greg, because I think a lot of business owners are struggle sometimes when it comes to growth, and whether it's the automation or whatever it might be. So at what point do you, as a business owner, start looking at automation? Is there a point where you can start automating too soon, or start automating something that's not supposed to be automated, or how you discern that?
Yeah. I don't know if there is, I will say there's probably both, right? I don't recommend automating something before you fully understand it, right? I think like you need to do this yourself to understand what you're trying to create, to understand the role it plays in your customer experience, to understand the impact it has on your bottom line. And after you have done it and understood it, then you can decide this isn't the best use of my time, skills, energy, or resources, and maybe automation could do it for us. But I do think there needs to be some ownership in that, where a human, if you're going to automate something, it should be a choice, not a default. So somebody is saying, hey, we're automating this because it will save us time, save us headcount, or it will create a superior customer experience because they get the thing faster, right? There should be a measurable benefit to why you introduced automation there. And conversely, well, you said like, or is it too late, right? Is there a time when like people have waited too long? I think it's usually, you should usually embrace automation earlier than you think. Because I find that so many small businesses, they treat it as, it's like that thing I'll do once I get there. Like once we get to a certain level, then we will have like earned this, like the ability to automate. Well, like, but only once we get like enough customers or enough contacts or our list size reaches whatever, like then we will, automate that process. And I understand why they feel that way, because we see automation modeled by the bigger companies. And so it feels like something that they've done because they are a bigger company. But I like to remind people that like, it isn't something you do once you get there. It is the thing that gets you there. Automation is the vehicle that helps you become a medium or large size business or whatever your goals are. Like one of my personal like hot button topics is just the inherent assumption that growth is the goal for every small business. There is this like unspoken culture in the small business community that you should always be growing. And I, for a long time, measured myself against that like ideal. And it wasn't until like several years into MonkeyPod where I was like, why is growth the goal? And should it be? And so like, I feel like I just abruptly right-turned the conversation, but it's related, right? If automation is like a key to growth, well, you should ask yourself, like, is growth what we are after? Because some people want a really hands-on boutique small business. And in that case, like, I'm not saying you couldn't use automation, but the way you would use automation would be different.
Right. From what you're saying, as far as the Life Owner community goes and how we operate here, I mean, when we talk about your life, when we talk about your business, we always look at having a vision for your life or vision for your business. So I think the automation aspects that you're referring to here should be driven by your vision in a way, by what you're going after, what you're trying to get to. And that's going to determine whether or not you should automate now or later, or what you should automate and those kinds of things. Am I right about saying that?
I think so. Yeah. Jason, you had asked about, I think one of your comments was like, Greg, it seems like you take a lot of trips or you travel a lot. And I certainly do or did, when traveling was a little less risky, and will again, right? And my business is very modest. Like, I'm really proud of what I do and it serves me, but like, it's just me. And I have a part-time community manager, Jade, who is terrific. And like, I'm very clear on like the size and scope of my business, but it serves me because it supports the lifestyle that my partner, Sarah, and I want, which involves being able to go on, hikes during the work week and being able to take road trips and being able to, travel when we want. And that didn't happen by accident. The first year or two of MonkeyPod, I felt like I was pouring in the hours, pouring in the sweat equity. And I was waiting for like, when will I have this pause? When will it stabilize so that I can, breathe? And then I can like go live my life. And like, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing I'm speaking the life and air language. Like I understand this. But I realized like, oh, that thing I'm waiting for, like this, it's not going to happen. Like there will always be fires to put out. There will always be, new issues to solve. And so I need to, instead of like waiting until we can go travel, like I need to find a way to do it now. And it became about like just carving out, okay, we wanted to take a 3-week road trip through the Canadian Rockies. And it was like, well, as a solopreneur, even with automation, I can't take 3 weeks totally away from my business. I have, 200 members in a community that I support. Like, what will that look like? And it was like, well, I guess we'll never take this trip, was sort of the fallback. And that wasn't an okay answer with me. I was like, no, that's not, like, if I'm going to run this business, it needs to also serve me back, which is, that's it. Like, your business should also serve you back. As proud as you are to pour yourself into like what you do and how you serve your customers, it is untenable if it doesn't serve you. And I think that was probably, in a nutshell, the problem with that first business. Was I loved it, but man, it just took and took and took from me. And that's not a healthy balance. So the road trip happened. We've actually done a couple of them now, a multi-week road trips where we camp and we hike. And the way that we did it was we're deliberate about, okay, every third day we're going to stay in a hotel, or every fourth day we're going to stay in a hotel somewhere with Wi-Fi where we can get caught up on email, on member questions. I started, depending on contractors in my network who could like help with certain aspects of my business. So we just created the plan to say, well, what, rather than accepting no as like this trip won't take place, what would it have to look like in order for it to be true? And like, we wanted to go to Banff and Jasper and some like relatively remote areas where I knew we wouldn't have cell service, let alone Wi-Fi. And so it was like, okay, like that's fine. We just need to go into Calgary every 4 days and like, check back into civilization. And like, I know that that's not everyone's jam. Like, some people want to be able to unplug for like 12 days or 2 weeks or whatever and just be totally offline. But for me, it was about, maybe balance is maybe a myth, but it was about like organizing our life so that we could do both, so that we could prioritize and take this, multi-week trip where we get to see some of the most beautiful parts of, the Western provinces of Canada, but also like continue to lead and grow the business that is, supporting that is my livelihood. And we did a similar trip, a multi-week trip, ping-ponging around Australia. And I visited with customers in each of the locations that we went to. And we like have found this hybrid of like personal, professional balance that it helps because Sarah works in education. So she has natural breaks in her like calendar, thanks to the like school schedules and the summer break and the spring break. And so we want to capitalize on those, but my business never stops. So like, how can we like take advantage of those and like create this, life that allows us to travel and be flexible while still feeling like I'm a dedicated and focused entrepreneur? And the answer was like, we just have to be clear that it is a goal, and we have to treat it like one and design a plan like you would for any objective in your life that you're dedicated or committed or driven toward.
So I heard a couple of things that really struck me, Greg, that you said. One is like, you didn't just say, hey, we can't do it, but instead you asked a question like, how can we do it? And then also, it also struck me is that, just like you said a moment ago in regards to automation, we're not going to wait until some point in our business, whether it's growth, profit, revenue generated number, or whatever goal. You are taking these trips and you've learned how to implement the life component of things now, rather than at some point, hey, once Monkey Pod is making like, $3 million a year, then we can start taking vacations. Like, that's not the way you did it. And so I love the intentionality and the deliberate decision-making behind that. And so, talk to me for a second. And so this is awesome, man. And by the way, is the setup you have now, like, is this the ideal? Do you feel like you've hit it?
So, gosh, I think like there's a quote I love. That's like a man can never step in the same river twice, because the river is not the same and neither is the man, And so like, if you ask me, like, do I have the setup? It's like, today I feel like I do, but like as my life changes, as I change, like I will ask different things of my business, and like the setup may change as well. But here's what's interesting to me is, like I mentioned, like the first couple of years of Monkey Pod, I was just like, go, 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 go. And I was like, I felt like if I was doing anything but working on my business, I was cheating on it. That's how I felt. I felt like if I wasn't there, if I wasn't, churning out content, that I was cheating on my business. I was stealing time from it. And I realized I was like, cheating on my life by stealing time from it. Right. And that's where I said, like, it needs to serve you back. And that's the realization I arrived at, was like, as proud as I am of Monkey Pod, like it will be of no use to anyone if I am if I'm no good, if it's no use to me. Like it has to provide for me. And that means like, yeah, financially, but also like validation for the work that I'm doing, and like peace of mind that like I can go take trips or do things without feeling a sense of guilt or obligation to it. And that was a big cognitive shift for me. So you asked, I'm not known for my brevity, in case that's not clear, but
hey man, that makes for great episodes.
You asked if like my business is where it needs to be, or if I'm happy with like the configuration of it. And I am, but it wasn't with that. It didn't take the shape that I thought it would when I first started it. When I was starting Monkey Pod, I had a vision of like growing a team and like other, maybe adding a consulting component and this and that. And like, I had these like more like grand ambitions for like what the Monkey Pod empire could turn into. But somewhere along the way, I realized, like I mentioned this earlier, like there's this inherent expectation that we will always grow. Like small businesses feel this pressure to grow, to get to that next level, to go from whatever you're at to the next tier. And it took me a while before I could challenge, like, well, why is that the goal? And should it be? And here's what I realized. I had sort of thought like, there will come a day when I can say, oh, like I have, like somebody's going to show up and like hand me the keys to a yacht. Like I thought there'll be like a success finish line where you like cross it and you're like, cool, I've made it to like the success club. And that there would be like, velvet ropes around it and whatever. And I realized like that doesn't exist. You create it. And like you can put those success like velvet ropes up around wherever you want. I use a lot of hiking analogies because we hike a fair amount, and that's like when my brain spins on these business things. But I treated it like we were on this trail hiking toward the summit, and we reached a really comfortable like alpine lake. And it was like beautiful and serene. And like we like tossed up we have a hiking hammock you can like toss up, and we like had a picnic there. And then it was like, okay, back on the trail up to this summit. And then I was paused and I'm like, well, why is the summit the goal? Like why is like, maybe this alpine lake was the destination. Maybe like this is where Monkey Pod like fits. And that's okay. There's nobody saying you have to like make it to the top of the mountain where the altitude is thinner and the terrain is more rugged. Like if that's your goal, great, you like do it. But all I'm saying is that like, it doesn't have to be. Like you get to choose what the destination is for your business, what the ideal size is for your business. And for me, it was like, yeah, it's this sort of smaller, mid-tier size where I feel perfectly comfortable with the way it performs and the reach that it has, and it serves me back. And so I don't know. That wasn't obvious to me. It feels obvious to say it, but it wasn't at the time. I was chasing like these, like more and bigger and better. And it took me some like maturity or some discipline to pause and go like, is that what I want? Because nothing's like, I've got it pretty good. So what am I doing?
So man, that's really interesting. And I hope all of our listeners right now are taking notes, because Greg, I'm curious as to what your thoughts are as to why you think people just think bigger is always better and more is always better. But also along with those lines, what kind of things struck you that made you realize like you're in a good spot? Was it like, hey, this business complements my life. I'm not serving it anymore. It's making me the money I need. What kind of criteria did you use to make that decision?
I don't remember which trip it was. We did a road trip up and down the West Coast of the US in 2019. I think it was that one. And I remember driving through like the Bishop Mammoth area, which they're two small mountain towns. And I remember Sarah was driving and I was like hot spotting from my phone. I had my laptop up and I was like, getting my Wi-Fi going as we were driving through this like beautiful, vista of the like Sierras that are there. And I was building a campaign because I was relaunching one of my courses. And 2 days later, so the launch was like a couple of days. It was a new version of the course and I was raising the price. And a couple of days later, we arrived in Bend, Oregon to stay at a friend's house. And that was the end of my launch window. And we went to a coffee shop so we could work a few hours before we went to the friend's house because I wanted to like be caught up on work. But we got to the friend's house and they were making dinner. I remember we had stir fry, and throughout the course of dinner, I was like, hey guys, like, I don't want to be rude, but I'm going to probably be looking at my phone. Like I'm at the tail end of this launch. And like, I just want to be able to respond to anyone who has questions as like the deadline for signing up for this course happens. And they were like, yeah, no big deal. And the deadline was midnight Eastern time. And so 9 p.m. Pacific time. And so at 9 p.m. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm offline. But I took a screenshot of my inbox because it was the first time that I had ever seen my inbox with just nothing but receipts, nothing but orders that had come in throughout this day. And I realized like, I've made it. Like this is like, my partner and I camped at Convict Lake, and then we spent the night at a hotel in Mammoth, and then we drove to the Tahoe National Forest, and then we drove to Klamath Falls, and then we drove to Crater Lake, and then we drove to Bend, and we like hiked and camped, and we took our dog and threw the tennis ball at the dog park in Bend, and then I was like, I'm doing it. Like this is the dream, right? And then at the end of the day, I checked my phone and automation has helped create, I think it was like 27 new orders that day, which was a record for my business for the day and for the week. And I just remember realizing like, okay, like that's it. That's the answer. And it was this like, this sense of comfort for me that like, okay, I can have both things. Like I don't have to compromise one for the other. And like, this is a scalable recipe that I can rely on. So I don't know. I don't actually remember what you asked that led me on that story, but like that was a defining moment for me where I realized like I had helped countless small businesses use automation. But even so, like my business has, everybody feels like their story is different or it's not going to work the same for them. And that was like one of the first times where I was like, wow, like I'm not just teaching this, I'm like living it. And that made it feel, I've always believed in automation as a solution for others, but it was one of the first times where I was like confronted by it in my own business in an irrefutable way. And it like created an emotional reaction for me where I was just proud.
Well, dude, it is cool to hear that story. And I think anybody who experienced it was just like this epiphany where of you arriving, of you acknowledging and appreciating all the work that had been put into it and the success you've achieved. And so that's awesome. That is really, really cool.
Can I add something before you ask the question, man?
Yeah.
Because I think this is very important. As you guys, those of you who are watching this video, I think Greg got a little bit of emotional because it made you proud. And I think the realization I just realized here as you were talking about this, automation is not about tags. It's not about, what happens here to here and how this person goes here, how this person goes there. It's about this, it's about what it ultimately provides for you as a business owner. And I think when you start looking from that perspective, you start realizing why automation is so important in your business, whatever, because what it can provide for you.
That's it. Nobody, like in a vacuum, a landing page or a web form or a tag or a contact record, like none of those things mean much in a vacuum. But it's only when they have the context of like, well, how does it serve my customers and how does it serve my business, right? What is their role in this larger thing? And that's something I try to, like, Jason, I'm sure you heard this at the workshop we did 2 months ago. I said, I would try to teach people, like, I don't want you to memorize these features. Like, that's nobody's goal. What I'd like for you to do is like, create the path forward for your business. You have a plan for your business. So I'm going to show you a whole bunch of tools and then you get to choose the ones that you need to make the recipe work. And that recipe is personal. It's different for everyone. So Peter, to your point, like, ask, like, how will this serve me? And just one thing I'll add is I'm immensely proud of the experience I create for my customers. Automation doesn't have to be a compromise. And that's something that I don't think I would have understood in my first business. Even if you had come to me, the draft beer dispense guy, and you had said like, you should use systems, you should use automation. Like that's how you'll grow your business. Even if you had said that to me, I probably would have just brushed it off because I was too proud of like how I ran my business. And I didn't think there was any way that automation or systems could replace it because it's hard for you to like feel open or receptive to that idea without it like humbling you a little bit. And what I'll remind people of is like automation is an extension of you. Like these aren't arbitrary things that are just going to happen. The AI isn't going to take it over and run your business for you. It is a tool that you get to use to create an experience for your customers that you are proud of and that, builds trust and creates the outcome that both you and they are looking for.
Greg, as you're talking and with Peter's questions, the one thing that also struck me is it seems like you have a really strong ability to be introspective and to ask questions and to be curious. And it's not like just this like, hey, this is the way it is, but rather like you're asking critical questions to kind of get you in the direction of what you really are after achieving. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we just put our head down and we think it has to be a certain way.
Yeah. I have a rule that like, because we've always done it that way is never a good enough reason. That's it. Like whatever it is, whatever the thing is, challenge, like, why do we do it that way? And there should be a justifiable reason because it's faster, because it's better, because it saves us resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But because we've always done it that way, that's not good enough. And I say that because, small businesses and maybe humans, maybe not just small businesses, like it's hard enough to do something like the first time. If you solve a problem in your business, it's like, whew, there's a big sigh of relief and then you move on to solve the next problem. So it takes a level of discipline to go back to things that might be working and to say, how could it be better? How could this be improved, right? And so there are patchwork individual, solutions throughout all of our businesses and probably all of our lives that in the moment were a necessity and were a win and probably deserve to be celebrated, but may not be the best way to do that thing, knowing what you know now. And so, yeah, I try to make a regular effort of like reviewing, like, why do I do it this way? Or how do we do it that way? And as I mentioned in my story for educating myself on the Infusionsoft platform, like, I think I just like understanding things. I like learning. And so I would regularly like try to go find the answers to things I didn't know and explore, well, why does it work that way? And that extends beyond the bounds of software and into like, well, why chase growth or why build a team? Like, people, it happens all the time. There's a small business like reality where like you start a business because you love doing something. And then as your business grows, somehow you do less and less of the thing that you loved and you become a people manager who leads a team and you're like detached from the thing that you were most passionate about in the first place. And I'm just suggesting like, it doesn't have to be that way. And maybe we can be, more judicious about the way we, allocate our time or allow ourselves to be divided into those different buckets.
Man, well, Greg, listen, you have shared so many awesome nuggets here for every listener to go back to this episode more than once. And I really want to thank you for being on the show. And dude, I'm just so happy to hear about your success because like, for those of you guys who haven't checked out Greg and you know his story, it couldn't happen to a better guy. Just shares so openly, has a heart for people. And that's also, I no doubt contributed to your success, man. And so thanks for being on the Life Leader Show, man.
It was totally my pleasure. This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Man, that was an awesome episode. Greg is just a cool guy. He's really smart. He asks the right questions and I'm so happy for his success. One of the things that really struck me that he talked about was like, he had this moment of like, wow, like this is what I want. This is what I've been after. This is what I've been pursuing and I'm living it right now. And he talked about, how big do we need to grow? Like what's the real goal here? Why are we doing this?
Right. And that's one of those things that I think a lot of business owners struggle because if you're looking out in their society, you look at Google, you look at Facebook, you look at Amazon's and it's grow, make it huge companies, right? And there is this idea that bigger is better, always kind of thing, right? But to his point, what he was saying, if you look at from a life owner perspective, you look at your vision. What do you want your vision to look like? And then what does that business look like to support that vision? All of a sudden you start seeing how big of the business you need to have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think go ahead.
And how you need to structure it, right? Like,
right. Exactly.
Like to your point earlier in the intro, automation.
Yeah. Automation. And it's, one of the cool things that I got from this episode that he was sharing is like, when you're a business owner and working in your business, a lot of times you just work in your business. You're not really thinking about it. However, when you start getting curious about your business, I think you used the word curiosity, start getting curious about your business, you start looking from a different perspective of, okay, so what can we automate? What should we automate? And doing it sooner than later. And then I feel a lot of business owners get into this vicious circle, kind of like a hamster wheel, because they're like, well, we'll automate when we get to this point. And in order for us to get to that point, we actually need to automate.
Yeah. Dude, that was a big breakthrough for me where, and we talk about this in Life Leader all the time about not waiting until someday when we live this part of our vision. Yeah. Well, Greg said the same thing in regards to our business, and doing things in our life and not waiting for our business to be at that certain place, but like we gotta start doing those things, both in terms of automation, right? Like he mentioned, I love what he said, dude. He's like, yeah. And you just said it right. You said it awesomely right here too. Instead of waiting to a certain size to automate, no, automate now. And that will lead to the size you want to get or to the result you're after. But also he did the same. It's the same thing with his personal life. He wasn't going to wait until Monkey Pod got to a certain size before he started taking trips and before he started taking vacations. Right. And, and so he found that porridge is not too hot, not too cold, that perfect recipe for the business he wants, and he's living it. And so I think that's something that all of our listeners need to do is like, look for yourself. And I love what he said too. Your business is there to serve you. And not just you serve your business. And so is your business serving you? What are the questions? Be curious that you can ask about your business to make it more in line with your vision, and not putting that off until someday when. Tons of great content here. Really enjoyed this episode, man. Anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just amazed that you brought in the bears and the porridge into this story somehow.
A little Goldilocks. Yeah. Well, I have a 2-year-old now. And so like, yeah, my references are
so that's the stories you listen to. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It's Baby Shark. Yeah. And Goldilocks.
Green eggs and ham.
Right. Exactly. Well, listen, I hope you love this episode. I know I certainly enjoyed interviewing Greg. And so if you want to find out more about Greg, by the way, I mean, he's a ton of stuff on YouTube. You can check it out. He also talks a lot about business life cycle marketing. It's not just automation, but he has a lot of great content. So check it out. Also, if you want to be part of the Life Inner conversation, go on and download the Life Inner app. If you're not already in there, you're missing out. There's lots of great conversations and discussions in there about life, about business, about automation, about setting up your vision. Any and everything related to having a better life or business is in the app. Also, listen, we would love for you to review us, to give us a rating, give us some feedback. This helps us reach other people and make a difference in their lives and businesses as well. And so that would be greatly appreciated. And so until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, create the life and business you love, and we'll see you next time.